A trend that's been increasing nowadays is the trend of hoping for a game and or a company's downfall. Like the idea of trying everything in your power to focus solely on the negatives about something that you may not be interested in, you may not fully like, a company you may not fully like entirely, and hoping for their downfall in one way, shape, or form. This is the weird idea that rather than being hopeful something's good, you are hopeful that it's something bad, and the varying reasons why people have this kind of mentality. One reason some may have could be the idea that the new project by a company could they're not interested in and they wish their company did something else. Like, let's say an easy one could be PlayStation, and PlayStation first party games being more story emphasis, story heavy games, where some people could have wished for, oh, I want like another Jack and Daxter, I want an Ape Escape, something like that. So they wish the company would go back to their previous work. So it could be the idea that, oh, if this new project doesn't do so well, maybe they'll do the thing I want. When reality, no, probably just lead to the closure of the company entirely if the project were to fail. But that's only one reason some people have for wanting something they don't like or don't care about to not do so well. Because if it does well, that's the fear that, oh, they're going to keep doing this thing for the rest of eternity, which is also generally not the case. It could be the person holding some sort of major grudge against a company. Generally, when it comes to franchises that may have had the one very infamously bad game that people will hold over a company to the day they freaking... well, to the heat death of the universe, basically. Like, ask Sonic fans about Sonic 06, despite the fact that it's come out really 20 years ago at this point, yet people will still act as if it is something to be constantly feared, something you should be afraid of and scared. It's one of those weird aspects of gaming where people will hold this hatred for a particular thing, no matter how old it is, in their heart and fear every new project will become just like that, even if there's no signs that will be the case. Remakes and remasters are easy targets for stuff like this, because by general nature things will be different. Would it be a remaster remake that may shift things towards newer fans and make things more designed for them than the old-time fans? Old-time fans get burned as a result in the process of the company trying to get newer fans, and stuff like that. Generally easy for people to wish for a game's downfall. I mean, look no further than how people look at Persona 3 Reload and compare it to every previous version of Persona 3, even though ironically some of their complaints could also befall another version of Persona 3, like Persona 3 Portable. But, you know, it's one of those things where people want the remaster or remake to be more celebrating and more doing the cool things the original did, rather than being something different than it wasn't. That's a whole can of worms when it comes to remakes and everything about how they can be completely different for a different audience. But it's a very easy target for such negativity and people wishing a remake were to fail. The next entry of a game having too much change, that whole entire thing where people get angry just for the fact that something different is being done, whether it be different game mechanics, different gameplay period, or their protagonists. Like I know for Final Fantasy, people still mad about 16 not being a real Final Fantasy game when it is, just has action gameplay and everything, even though it's like the third Final Fantasy game to have action gameplay, but people ignore that detail, including Square Enix themselves. Or how people get mad about other franchises treating protagonists and everything, where it's like, new protagonist, new story they're going for, doesn't mean it's not part of the franchise. They're going to try to do something different entirely. Just, you know, try to do something different, change, but some people don't want to change and want more of the same, even if it's the idea of having an entire franchise with just the same main character throughout all of it. Even though realistically, not everything can really pull that kind of thing off. Here's an aspect not mentioned much. Leaks. Leaks can show things in ways that weren't meant to be seen, and therefore people lack the full context of stuff, which can cause more speculation, generally in a negative sense, because people don't fully know because only having partial information. Remember, Last of Us Part 2 had so much wild speculation and assumptions because of the leaks that happened, to the point where people just generally let these leaks believe that, oh, this is what is actually going to happen, when nothing in the game was actually like some of the stuff that people thought was going to happen. Although Last of Us Part 2 got hate also for a different reason that was part of the actual game, but I'm talking about simply leaks, or I believe also Insomniac Spider-Man 2 also got leaked and stuff like that. Information was gotten out before the actual major hackings, but mind you, leaks before the game came out that I know people were talking about and were already bummed out or were like, oh, Spider-Man 2 is going to be lame, it's going to be poorly handled things. And while it does poorly handle several things in the story sense, it's one of those things where, you know, getting out of context stuff that you may not like can pretty much affect how you feel about something. Or also even Final Fantasy VII Remake, which also had leaks, especially the finale stuff got leaked, and that stuff also pushed people away without any context what was actually going on with it, what the story was trying to do. But one of those things that can make people completely negative and pray for a game's downfall because they already have the negative assumption in their mind due to partial information. A reboot by default will always draw much negativity since it's literally the sole idea of abandoning everything that came before it in favor of doing something entirely different. And if changes in a remake or remaster can create negativity, this by default will have people sure holding for its downfall even many years after the fact, whether it be people still treat stuff like DMC Devil May Cry, Castlevania Lords of Shadow as his major boogeyman, or Sonic Boom, Ryza Lyric as well as his major boogeyman, just for the mere idea that they were a reboot that's going to be different. Also the Tomb Raider reboot series as well. So that by default is going to draw in so much negativity from people because of it's the sole idea of abandoning everything that came before it, which for many people can feel like a massive slap in the face to the fan base, although some of them may be on board for a new idea, new direction. Hell, some people may have thought change was necessary, but by default just throwing everything out is going to cause people to be upset regardless, and it's kind of an unavoidable aspect of doing a reboot. Another reason people can be mad at a company is if they overly start pandering to a particular entry that may have been a gateway for new fans, such as for Yakuza franchise, Yakuza 0, and constantly how newer entries after it will keep panning back to it, constantly going, hey fans, start Yakuza 0, remember Yakuza 0? And stuff like that, which can feel annoying to an insane degree. The idea that the game series gets pigeonholed to basically constantly reference this one particular entry because it did so well financially for the company, so they want to pretty much constantly reference it for the fans and go clap and go, I remember that one. Or for Atelier franchise, I've seen people who get more and more angry at the Ryza games, not only because they feel like it may have simplified things for newer fans kind of thing, but also because it constantly gets brought back up and referenced constantly with pandering to it, even to the point people didn't like the fact that the Secret series had 3 entries with the same protagonist, which was the first time the franchise ever used the protagonist multiple times like that. But hey, because of that, we also got something like Atelier Sophie 2, so there's also good that came from it, the idea that they don't have to constantly swap protagonists all the time, but people just are sick of seeing Ryza, especially from what I've seen the Atelier and Shiology fans, who really love that entry, but feel like it gets overshadowed now by the popularity of Ryza and how many fans that brought in. So it's also that whole entire aspect when it comes to the idea of a company constantly pandering to the newer fans to the same degree that it can feel like the older fans are screwed over as well, kind of problem. And a big one is also when companies change drastically. What I mean by the people in charge are not the same people who were there when you were a fan of their work, kind of thing. So the philosophies they go with may be entirely different and change to the point where the stuff you liked and cared about may not be what a company wants to kind of do anymore for one reason or another. Like, kind of like how, for example, I still see people to this day want new Sly Cooper, they want new Infamous, but Sucker Punch wants to do Ghost of Tsushima, their new project. They still enjoy their past project, still enjoy their past IPs, but this is the kind of thing they want to focus on, and people get mad at the idea that they've been betraying their fans, when in reality it's just they want to go in a new direction, try something different, which there's nothing wrong with a company doing that, but equally so, there's nothing nothing wrong with people also not liking the new stuff being done, because they're not obligated to like everything a company does, just like how a company's not obligated to do everything an audience demands as well. Going back to that topic of games that can go a different direction people don't like, let's look at the Fire Emblem fan base, where they're pretty much divided into pre-awakening and post-awakening fans. Pre-awakening fans like Fire Emblem more, was more mission-to-mission based, the more risk versus reward in the gameplay, and there wasn't stuff like a casual mode to pretty much undo mistakes you did. Granted, Fire Emblem fans already restarted entire chapters if things went wrong, so I got to get to complain for a casual mode. But then you have post-awakening, where for those people it became more about narrative and character interactions, even if, because you have characters constantly interact to make different kind of dialogue, could make the characters seem more shallower to pretty much compensate for so much writing that needs to go on for conversations, and it could also pretty much problem of making things more casual to an extreme point, like for the fact that Three Houses, Engage, and I believe also Echoes gave players the ability to rewind their turns immediately, but also affected game design because, oh, the player can do this, then the game has to be developed in a way to pretty much give players a reason to do that, so it can't feel like more recent games have way more cheap shots and stuff like that in order to bait the player to just rewinding their entire turn to use the mechanic. So when people say, oh, it's an optional mechanic to affect gameplay, no, it can affect entire map designs because it's a mechanic that has to be pretty much thought about with the rest of the game. It has to be something that developers have to think about and use when it comes to making how the game's designed. So no, stuff like that does have a drastic effect on the game design as a result, which, like I said, pre-awakening fans do not like. Hell, I remember when Fire Emblem Engage was coming out, and there were outlets claiming that the social aspects got toned down. Post-awakening fans were pissed as hell, even trying to say such absurd things like saying if you're playing Fire Emblem for gameplay, you're playing it for the wrong reasons. And I didn't think in this day and age I would actually see people trying to say for Fire Emblem that you should be playing Fire Emblem for gameplay. That is freaking nuts to me, but it was a whole entire thing and debacle that happened. Granted, once again, this kind of debacle only happened with the online fans, because offline fans just like Fire Emblem. They enjoy it, they have fun. Another big one I know people generally attribute with being more modern day and widespread on YouTube, but no, this has been a thing for a long time really. Being negative because it makes money, because there is revenue being made from being so negative on something, especially where to go, I, as longtime fan, am mad about new thing being done. It makes people come pay attention to you because oh, long-time old fan doesn't like this? Man, that must mean there's some issues. Even if the person in question could just be lying about the fact to just pretty much get attention, and the attention breaks him money. And I know people attribute this more with YouTube and people making videos and stuff going, company is doomed and everything, or why is company pandering to this or that, but that's been a constant thing, not just a YouTube thing. Even journalists and media do stuff like that, where they'll be overly harsh negative or be angry about something or to get attention, because there's also stuff like person who hates thing ends up enjoying it to try and pretty much add buzz to make a win-win for both the game and the person in question, or just the idea of making a reputation as being a person who hates insert thing, because then people will pretty much either check you out of curiosity or will check you out for the hate clicks, hate views, or whatever. So there's one other aspect where you can just lie about not caring about something. You can just lie and say anything about the company, and with developers, and with the game. Lie and say you're a big fan when you're not, because it makes money. And that's a big thing people have done for many years. It's just more widespread nowadays in the online space because it's easier than ever to make money from that, when before you had to be part of a company in order to write articles and stuff like that to make money from being that kind of pretty much freaking village fool. So look at just kind of the reasons why people tend to be so overly negative, have weird fixation with wanting something to pretty much meet its downfall even before it's even out, actually especially before it's even out. There's also combined with the fact that nowadays people are paying attention more and more to the numbers than ever before, since nowadays one failed project can pretty much kill an entire company, so people want to pay attention to the numbers, the numbers. Especially as companies love throwing out their numbers, or in some cases, love trying to hide their numbers, which can add mystery to the whole entire aspect of something's doing well or not. I remember from some Rebirth, we didn't know the full numbers of how it was doing, so people thought Rebirth fell as a project, the Remake project was failing entirely, but no, it did great numbers, it just wasn't the numbers Square Enix was hoping for, because Square Enix can almost never actually be pleased. But it's because they're trying to help their games make up for other losses, which is incredibly stupid. But that's a whole entire thing where, because the numbers are really available, people pay attention to the numbers and try to spin it whatever negative way they can in order to pretty much add to their point, even if the numbers can sometimes betray them and highlight things are going better than expected or about on par. But, once again, people want to spew things in their own way, whether it be hope for, hey, if this fails, I'll get the thing I want, or the idea of I can make money being so negative and running behind people in a whole entire sea of negativity and a whole entire aspect. That's what I want to talk about when it comes to people loving spewing negativity when it comes to wanting a project to fail. That is all. Have fun. Play games.